All right. Well, welcome to
Hi.
what? What is this called?
This is the Motyv podcast.
That's right, the Motyv podcast, my friend, spelled with a Y for a reason. If we don't say it enough, we need to. Like, this is the Motyv podcast. We're here to liberate or something. Like Motyv liberates. Like we've said it before, but liberation to me means everything. Setting something free, setting yourself free from whatever's holding you captive. And I think sometimes we think a lot about that as the external things that keep us captive, when really it's actually 90% internal. So anyway, that's what we do. And we're kind of in a fun mood right now. So who knows where this is going to go. So right now, Steve, take yourself to yourself. Steve is DJing over there.
Back here.
In a nice little setup because we needed a DJ. But this is actually your topic that you brought today, correct?
Yeah, no, this is what I'm excited about. It's been something I've felt strongly about for a while, about being playful. But it kind of originated from a quote that I had come up on Instagram or something. And it says, if I don't read it, I'm going to butcher it. But you don't stop playing because you get old. You get old because you stop playing. And no, it's something I felt strongly about, because I think for a while I was seen as, and even seeing myself as, like kind of like a goofy dad, goofy guy. But I've recently learned how important that is, not only for my kids to see. That's a side of this that I think I'm going to talk through. But for me to understand the time and place, appropriateness, and the benefit of being playful in all things.
That's cool.
Plato, the first thing that comes to my mind is Plato said, life is to be lived as play. And when you think about scriptures too, to when Jesus says, like, be as a child, I think there's something incredible about that. And from our childhoods too, from one of the wisest men on the planet named Gordon B. Hinckley, and his amazing wife, Marjorie Hinckley. I mean, they were as playful as it gets, yet time and place. I like that you said that, Steve. Time and place is a big part of that. So I don't know. What do you think,
awesome.
Blake? I feel like this is a good one for me to be part of. I feel like both of you guys are more playful than me. So I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say too. Because I think at my heart I am, but I think I have lost it. Steve, like you said, I think maybe that's why I don't have hair anymore.
Oh, maybe
that's
losing
why
it too.
I
but
just stopped
like
being playful and I got old for like a decade.
Look at this. Camera 1 or 3. It's going away.
I got a nice
you got a shaver
I
can
got a shaver you can have.
My first thought was children learn through play. And
Totally.
so when you mentioned children, like be as a child, I thought of that too. And I don't know why we lose it, and as adults, I guess we have a lot of serious things to think about and to do. As we get older, we have more responsibilities, whether that's church responsibilities, and, you got to take those things serious too, but not too serious. One of my mottos at church callings is, no one's getting paid for this.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it helps me with my own responsibilities at church. But it also helps me see others I'm not criticizing their job in the church.
It's a volunteer.
It's a volunteer. And I don't know what that has to do with play, but I think that we take ourselves way too seriously.
That's how I think we should define it. Steve, what do you think? I mean,
no, I agree. I love that children learn through play. I was listening to a podcast from Andrew Huberman a couple weeks ago, and he's a neuroscientist talking about this very thing, that children learn through play, but also that as adults, when we play,
don't forget to turn your camera.
There we go.
We're learning.
Multitasking so hard. But Andrew Huberman said
You're a man, you can't do it.
When adults play, we actually can rewire the way our brains work, and making them more efficient, making them more capable of it's this level of not multitasking, but being able to take in a lot of information at a playful level, rather than this this serious level like you were mentioning.
So there's like a fluidity.
Correct.
Which the book The Comfort Crisis, Michael Easter, We've been reading him, all three of us, and Motive Men. We've been studying him too. And I mean, Michael, thank you first off for writing that. If you ever hear this by chance, but it's a phenomenal book. And in it, he talks about getting into Alaska, right? He does this like huge time in Alaska where he's dropped off in the backwoods with a couple guides, but they know they can't get out, and he discusses accepting that almost what you would feel this claustrophobic place where you're not going to be able to get out no matter what. But then beginning to feel I guess what we're defining as is this playfulness, this fluidity of where his focus is, and that the vastness of nature allowed him to just be in it and to not have to think a ton, not have to worry a ton, just to be part of it. And I think that's what kids are, in their playfulness. And when I think back to when I'm most playful, that's exactly what's happening. There's zero resistance or very little resistance to my past, if you will. So the Shayden that I'm trying to be, that's maybe false, it's a pleaser or whatever that it could be. And there's little, if ever, any thought of the future, because I'm just totally present, and that fluidity starts to occur, that spontaneity.
Yeah. I wonder if when he was out there, I mean, we're talking Michael Easter.
Yeah.
The remotest, most remote like place you can kind of think of.
Yeah.
Forces you to realize how small you are. And I don't know if insignificant is the word, because I think we all are significant in our own circles. But in a big picture, it's like, why the heck are we taking ourselves so seriously?
I was just going to ask
We're pretty small. Like why?
So why do we?
What's so serious about all this stuff? I think it's because of our egos.
Absolutely. So define that, though.
I don't know. I mean, I think our egos manifest themselves. I feel loud, or it seems like I'm loud. Sorry if I'm loud. I'm obnoxious.
You're good.
I totally lost my
ego.
train of thought. Yeah, I know. Ego. But see, I know.
And why we take ourselves too serious or so serious?
Okay, they manifest themselves differently for each of us, right? Like some people have big egos about certain things or about being right or knowledgeable or whatever. I don't know why. I don't know why.
I have a guess
why we go there.
I know in my own life, it's what's my motive, right? So if I'm asking myself, what's my focus on this podcast right now, right? So if my focus is performance, I'll get serious. If my focus is connection and just connection, then it's the playfulness starts to come out. Or again, synonymous with that, a fluidity, spontaneity, less filtering, if you will, just more from the heart, less from the head. And that starts to occur. So I think most men lack the awareness of what their actual goal is when they're in something. And I know that for a fact. It's not like a hypothesis, like it's true.
Do you
know what I mean by that?
I think so.
It's like, okay, you went to a ward function or you go to work, right? You show up on a Monday morning. What's your actual internal goal? Is it just performance? And sometimes it is. Sometimes it needs to be. But if you forget connection day after day after day, then yes, now we begin to lose this playfulness. And do we even know we've lost it? I think most of the women in men's lives are the ones that remind them of that.
It's like gradual.
Like it's so gradual. Shelley said the same thing to me, like over the course of building Motive and just, I don't know, just being here all the time, it's easy for her to say that, like, there's a side of you that used to be a little more spontaneous, a little more this. And I think, Steve, you and I have talked about that, too, that
right.
We've gone through it. Therapy's serious business. So it's really hard to just flip the switch out of therapy or even in therapy sometimes and have like that playfulness in there.
Think about your sessions, though, that are the most effective.
Oh, absolutely.
Which ones? Is it when you're like performing so well and making such an impact on somebody?
Right.
Are those the ones that are the best? Not for me.
Right.
The ones that are best for me, when I feel like they've been more impactful, here comes the jets, Hill Air Force Base, or when I'm loose and really honed in on the person and just connecting with them. There's a lot of humor in my sessions. But like you said earlier, time and place. But I do feel like the most impactful sessions are the ones where it's just like, there's just connection and you're really like honed in on just Just having a good conversation where I don't have to feel like I'm sharing all my knowledge that I think I have,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all serious,
Yeah.
right? Now, and then some of the other ones are the other ones that are most impactful are when you're most vulnerable, which leads to another point. Is having fun and being playful vulnerable?
Totally.
Well, that's what I want to jump in on real quick. When you said honed in on, I think playfulness and curiosity have a level of like it's same.
There's overlap.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like looking at a kid, and this is back to the Michael Easter comfort crisis point when he was in one of the chapters starts rattling off a bunch of random facts about Cliff Bars and about where his equipment's made.
Oh yeah.
He's sitting there on the side of this hill while they're glassing for caribou, and he's reading the labels just like curiously, like a kid would just ask like, oh, why is that? Why is this Cliff Bar named Cliff? Why is this material used in this thing? And I know for my kids, that's the game we play all the time. It feels like a game because of how consistent it is. It's just like, hey, Dad, why is this? Like, why do we do this? Why is this happening?
Why?
And there's real curiosity. And I think it's through also connecting. Like they find this level of connection and asking somebody that they are around or look up to or admire or feel safe with that like, oh, why is this? Why do we do it? Why do we do it like this? Why is this happening? Why are you mad? Why is this going on? Right? Like this, all these questions.
Man, you think about, I've been annoyed at all the whys. That's weird.
So maybe that answers the question.
It's like,
as well,
what?
we slowly unlearn it, or we learn that it's not okay with other people that suck at playfulness too. And they teach us to stop.
Yeah.
When really they couldn't tolerate our level of natural vulnerability.
Right.
You
think about kids, like, why are they asking why so much? They're learning. They're just curious.
Totally.
And we're shutting them down. Man, that sucks.
Yeah, it does.
Sucks. Hey guys, stop doing that.
Yeah, stop doing that now.
Hey, parents out there, stop getting annoyed that your kid's asking so many questions.
Yeah,
like that's
a same
serious,
curiosity.
I'm serious when I say that.
Well, you think about it because later in life, that skill is so important when they're dating, when they're picking a major in school, when they're, everything they're doing, to have that curiosity. That's what takes everyone so far.
Ooh, but the next step is, what about whys that are not curious but they're challenging? Why,
oh yeah,
should we get mad at that?
Of course, whoop the kid.
So I guess when I'm like. I think about my 3 kids, and some of them ask why more than others. And it's like, bro, you're challenging me. Oops. I said, bro, that eliminates one of my kids from this. But they ask like, well, why? And it's a challenge. Why should I get upset at that? I can explain it to them. You know what I mean?
Or you can also say, why are you asking? Go back. Like, why are you asking?
Sure.
What's going on for you?
Curious.
What's happening?
You can
Show them
open
the same
up
curiosity.
a curious conversation where it's an open dialogue. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to change your answer. I'm talking about those why when it's like, no, you can't go right now. You have this and this to do. Why? Ooh. But it shouldn't be that way.
Yep.
No, but sometimes it is. And I think it's when I know for me, I'll say for me, when it's the challenge, it's like, I don't want to get into it right now. Like sometimes it's from my opinion, the worst timing, right? It's like, I don't want to get into an explanation right now. We're like hustling out the door. Like, why do I need to wear a coat? It's like, it's cold outside, but we're going to be in the car. It's like, oh my gosh. But really, like you said earlier, they're learning. Like my kids are especially at a spot 9 and under, like they're still learning so much.
I let them learn by not wearing the coat too.
Right. Exactly. My wife's really good at that.
It's like, who cares? They're going to be cold and go, maybe next time I should wear a coat.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question then. Let's do some resistance training then. So typical guy, our age, what are the benefits of not being playful?
Efficiency, maybe.
Efficiency.
Not wasting time.
Absolutely.
Time is important.
I like,
and you know me, like time for me is important to a certain point, right? Like my days are really, really rigid until about 5:30.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, wee, whatever. Right. But unless you have something to go do.
Okay.
So I think efficiency might be one.
Other benefit of not being so.
I think protection comes up for me. Yeah. Like keeping that ego safe, for lack of a better word, or just like protecting that, fearing vulnerability.
What if I don't play right? What if I don't know how?
What if somebody laughs at me instead of with me?
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the benefits too, like in that same breath of safety, I guess I don't know how to explain it besides let's say I used to be playful. I move into a new area or a new job, and all they know of me is more of the serious side. And so the benefit is, I guess, to stay that way. I'm not like disrupting how they see me, which then avoids vulnerability too. So, like, in the same breath of what you said, Steve, avoiding, or it's safe. But I think that's what keeps guys stuck a lot, is that this is what people know about me. This is how people know me, is this way. And in all reality, there's actually a side of you that no one sadly is getting to experience. So I guess the benefit is you keep those whose approval matters to you in harmony.
In what you think is kind of a
in
balance.
what you think is acceptable.
Yeah.
And what
and tolerable.
You've seen social evidence that they accept that side of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think another one for me, when I'm more irritable, when everybody's all playful, noise, loudness, just boisterousness, which again, I'm all about, almost on my own terms. That's what sucks.
I got confused. Explain that one, how that's a benefit.
Oh, I thought you said like a barrier. I went off into barrier.
Oh, you went into a barrier.
So the opposite, the benefit would be like peace and quiet.
Oh, yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep, peace and quiet.
I don't know why I switched that for a second, but that was what I was
think
thinking.
What you're saying too is it shuts others down. And I know that's a weird way to say it, but again, that's why we do the resistance
it keeps
work.
The peace. Like it keeps things nice, peaceful. When there's not, I mean, I had this moment yesterday. It was after church and I was reading The Comfort Crisis.
Mm-hmm.
I was getting all inspired and I was way into it. And my kids were like making their own, making lunch, making a snack or something.
They were alive.
They were alive. Yeah, but they were alive. Right? Like they were alive. And I felt myself getting tense. And I was like, let them work it out. Because within their play are also miniature like arguments and little back and forth stuff that I'm like, when I sit there and think about it, I'm like, oh, I taught them how to talk. I don't like how they're talking to each other right now, but also that's how I do it.
Yeah.
And I actually talked to them a little bit later about that in Come Follow Me. I was like, guys, I am owning this. But anyway, that's like a side note. But as I was like, I usually like step in, guys, like, hey, can you guys be more quiet? I'm not like mean about it usually, but it's like, hey guys, like I'm trying to rest and read and blah, blah, blah. You guys are being really loud. I decided this time, like conscientious, don't say anything, let them work it out. And soon enough, I mean, it was a little longer than I would have wanted to, but whatever.
Yeah.
They were, and then it dissipates, and then they go downstairs and they're playing something else. They're not even on screens, but you hear laughter, but it's also quieter. It's more peaceful, but they're totally getting along. And I was really glad that I didn't squash those moments because they don't last as long as we think they're going to.
Yeah.
Even within, like there was little bickerings within the playing, which was really annoying to me. But I was like, just let it ride. Let it ride,
Yep.
Yeah, which I think to your point earlier about awareness, Shayden, it takes a heightened level of awareness or intentionality, because my gut reaction is to be like, hey, stop. Like, hey, don't talk to her like that, or don't say this, or don't push, or whatever, right? To interject in anything. But it does take that more, it requires more intentionality to just sit back and like, okay, let's see if they figure it out. Let's let them figure it out, whatever it looks like.
Yeah. I thought of it. Go ahead.
Another benefit of not being playful to me is it's just easier. Like in the moment, it feels easier whereas if I'm on the couch and I'm just chilling and my daughter comes up and like literally jumps on my head, like is normal.
Or other places.
It's just, now I have to like awaken myself from a zombie mode to actual like alive and going. Engaged, and so it's just easier to not do it and to make an excuse. Or
I'm glad you said that one, because that was the next one I was going to say, was like it saves energy.
Yeah.
Like you get to rest.
And I think a lot of men have so much stress. Like you think about a typical Sunday night. I was just talking to my brother-in-law last night, and I think he'd be okay with me sharing this, but he just, he's like, he just had a baby, and I guess 5 weeks ago, and his paternity leave is up, and so he's going back to work tomorrow. And he just, he said it's really hard, like, to think about going back, like almost like I just don't even. There's like nothing that I want to, and so there can be that element of avoiding the future that's coming. And so if I subdue myself and just like stay chill, there's an essence to that seems like it's going to take longer. So it's almost like a procrastination.
Yeah.
And that's what, I know it might be a hard twist to it, but that's what I've noticed in my own life. Like if I just get lost in the moment, then, as people know, time flies by, right? When you're in the moment, like, time flies.
Yeah.
And so it's a way of, honestly, that's a weird one for me. There's an illusion that time is slowing. And if there's something I'm avoiding, it feels like I have longer to not have to do that thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. I was just thinking about a couple of experiences. So last summer, 2 summers ago, year and a half ago, was like and I think I've mentioned this to you guys maybe, was like my summer of yes.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, I'm just going to say yes. And I did it really well. And it was awesome. It was fruitful. And then because I'm stupid, you kind of forget about it, right? So this summer was a little different. We did do a lot of, like, we had some trips as family. So it was still really good. But like, I've noticed, again, it's that energy saver. It's like my kids are like, hey, you want to go shoot some hoops? I'm like, in a bit. And then I just don't, kind of. And then in the last few weeks, I'm like, I need to get back into saying yes. But have you ever noticed, like, do you guys, if you've taken your kids on a hike, one of my kids like really pushes back against hiking. My daughter, like, she doesn't, she's like, hiking.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as, and it's like, yeah, we're going hiking. We're going as a family. And I don't even want to go. But I know it's good for all of us. And I know as soon as we kind of get in the car and start driving, it's all good. It's all good. You start hiking, she's laughing, she's playing, she's whatever. She's even hiking pretty hard. And I've noticed that with myself then on the flip is like, let's go shoot some hoops. Okay, fine. And I get out, as soon as I step out the door, it's all good.
Yeah.
And I have more energy. It's energizing. Even when you think you're kind of depleted after a long day of therapy or whatever work you do, and you are, like, it's legit, you're exhausted, there's something energizing about that connection. And so then all of a sudden you find yourself with energy and it boosts you up.
Right.
It's super powerful.
No, I think that's that paradoxical part where we think, oh, it's going to take too much energy. Like getting up and like, yeah, my kids jump on me on the couch. Like whenever I'm on the couch, like they jump or play. Like it's I don't know. I don't know how some dads have established that.
You have little kids.
Yeah.
Like all of the little kids do that type of stuff.
Yeah.
But.
And it's super fun and I love it. But there's times when I'm like, when I've focused on the wrong things, been too busy during the day and whatnot, but I get irritated. But the funny part is Ashley's kind of developed a look and it's not like a glare, but it's like this, like, hey, like, you know what would be best right now? I can't even mimic it, but it's like these, like, yeah, softer eyes where it's like, hey, you know what would be best? And so, yeah, it's when I try to get up and play or like do something with them. But it's like you said, Blake, it gives you more energy. It releases all sorts of chemicals and whatnot that allow for us to sift through stress, to prioritize things better, to know like, okay, I'm taking myself too serious before, whether we even acknowledge that or not. It elevates us to a different plane.
Yeah.
That's what I've absolutely learned. And I try to continue to learn it. And I'm learning it every day.
Mm.
So what I'm hearing is, and what I've experienced too, is play is a litmus test of shame, because it invites you to stop hiding, and it invites you, let's just say, I mean, all three of us are pretty healthy, and we're talking about energy, all three of us, and we're pretty healthy guys as far as our ages go, and we're in shape. We can play pretty good. That's why we work out a lot of the time, is like so we can be healthy to play still with our kids and with our families. And so, no offense to someone listening to this that isn't in good shape, but that's what can happen, right? Where if there's shame about being out of shape, if there's shame about the way you're living your life, if there's inward shame of the habits that you have or addictions that you have, and a wife or a child bids to connect with you through the mechanism of play, guess what stops you? Shame. All that stuff.
So explain
keeps
it
you-
to someone coming in that might be needing some of that help.
Okay,
with-
so connection says that connection, in order to connect with somebody, think about it, you have to let them in. You have to let them see into you. And so intimacy, oftentimes said into me see, not just sexual. Intimacy is something that is allowing someone to see into me.
It's closeness.
So if I think that I'm filled with swamp water and garbage and stuff that's absolutely rejectable, when a child, it doesn't matter who it is, a child, a therapist, a wife, a dad,
Friend, a
a
buddy.
friend, a buddy, a stranger, actually bids to see into you, you will resist it. And
'Cause you
that's
don't want
why,
them to see the
because
crap.
you don't like what's inside. And you know what? There are things in there that shouldn't be liked, and they need to be seen. They need to be figured out. They need to be worked on, not
Exposed.
avoided and
Mhm.
avoided and avoided and out achieved. You know, that's where men hide their insecurities, is by achievement. So if I achieve on this, in this arena of my life, it will compensate for this arena that I don't want anybody to see. And you can't live a double life. Like, this stuff has to be, there's only one arena, and that's you. So that stuff has to be tilled up and seen and pulled out and figured out. And that's what we're here for, right?
Yeah. It's interesting as I think about this. I'm like, I don't always practice what I preach, but it's a little bit ironic, because when I talk to people about like getting in shape, you know, because I would say I'm into fitness. Doesn't, you know, I'm not where I would want to be, but I can do what I want. Like, and that's good enough, I guess. But I tell people that I'm into it so that I can play with my kids. That's like, my first reason is because it's my medicine. And my second reason is literally, I tell people, like, you can get witnesses that are like, I tell people it's so I can play with my family.
Yeah.
So I can do stuff with them. And so those times where I'm like resisting doing stuff with them, I'm kind of being hypocritical. But it happens. It's interesting.
So what about someone who isn't married? What about a single guy
With
and
play,
playfulness? Yeah.
coworkers, friends, whatever. Like because I you know how I am, right? Like I'm kind of obnoxious with it when it comes to work, coworkers, whatever. Like I'm always joking, I'm pranking, I'm sarcastic, I'm wanting to have fun. And I think that maybe I'm more scared of the serious aspect of things. And so that one's hard to answer. Like I'm trying to remember myself as single.
Well,
You know what I mean?
I was just thinking too, Sadie's not here, but I mean, Steve, you're no, I won't go there. Close enough to I was going to say close enough to I'm just playing. To a girl.
Whoa!
I was like, pause, because that's how we banter. I'm sorry. We banter, don't we?
Why'd you choose Steve?
I know, right? So
You're
Steve,
Blake, have you seen
Yes.
yourself?
I was just going to
I know, my
you
beard's
in.
smaller than
Oh, that's
yours.
true.
Dude, you got the
I know, I got the
smallest beard out of
wimpiest
all of
beard
us.
and no hair, so
Girl.
whatever. Sorry, Steve.
You're good.
So Steve, you represent the girl then. So
Deal. I'll go here.
if
We're
I'm
still gonna
if
go
I'm a
there.
single guy and I want to try to influence a female to be attracted to me, how would play into that? Is playfulness attractive?
Well,
If you had to guess from the female perspective.
Yes, I think it is, but it's got to be with how we're talking. It can't be the goofy side that's like a cover up or a mask. But
Using
like,
humor
that's
as like
so,
a
right.
mask.
right, like with what you're saying about not taking yourself too serious, maintaining that healthy energy, like doing it for the right reasons.
Not
And
being
you're-
too forceful about it, like fake. Like
Sure, yeah, and not overly sarcastic. We haven't really talked. You mentioned sarcasm a little, which I think there can be.
I don't know what that means. Can you explain? Sorry.
healthy.
I can't even keep a straight face. What is sarcasm?
We just lost the podcast. What minute are we at?
It's gone. No, but I think having all these things within reason, right, time and place, I think that's from what my assumption would be. It would be attractive.
I think you represented females really well, Steve.
Thanks.
See?
I hope
How
I
did you
well.
do that so good?
You know, it's tapped into my inner. I don't know.
Are you like a dating coach?
Don't even go there. I have nothing to say about
I don't either. I don't know how to do that anymore. I don't have to.
No,
Hey, I guess
thank
I think
You
it,
date your wife.
I think it goes without having a female here to say. It's pretty simple that if a guy's secure enough to be playful, it's attractive.
Yeah.
It just is, and it's flirty. Flirtation, playfulness, kind of the same thing.
One of the things, and this is definitely not out of arrogance, it's out of just experience. One of the things that my wife tells people, and me too, about what was attractive was that I was normal. Like after my mission, right? Because I think a lot of people come home from there is a transition thing,
Sure.
but I think she says that. She's like, you were normal. And I'm like, oh, well, that's probably good.
Yeah.
Right. And I think within that was probably sense of humor. I wasn't taking everything so freaking seriously, like all the time. You get back from your mission where everything was very, very routine and should have been. And there's a lot of good reasons for that. But when you come back, you're kind of like adjusting back to how do I keep this spirituality in in this world?
Yeah.
That's why I laughed, because my family can attest to this. I was dead scared of talking with girls, and I think it was like that rigid side of my brain that just didn't want to even engage. Like just was like, okay, transition, like I can't, don't, and so I don't know. It's funny. So I laughed because my family can attest to it for sure.
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite episodes on The Chosen is episode 3 with the kids.
I don't know it.
Oh, what?
Sorry. Don't shame me, bro.
Oh, I will shame you publicly.
Don't tase me, bro.
So there, for those of us that live on planet Earth and like The Chosen and are actual Christians, just
well,
kidding.
I was listening to this conference talk the other day.
So anyway, in episode 3, which is like the first 2 episodes, for anyone who hasn't seen it, it's like any other series. You got to get through the first couple because they're a little bit, you can tell they're working through it, kind of like how our podcast is, like just kind of rough, So episode 3 is where he actually meets these kids, and well, he's in his little camp, and these kids find him, and it's just awesome, man. He's so playful with them, and it's just a side of him, right? That's like that's real. He whittles these cute little toys for this girl and leaves them for her. He has to leave and doesn't really get to say goodbye the way you can tell the way he'd want to, and leaves these toys for her. And anyway, so to me there is, and again, it's them taking their due diligence to represent Christ in the way they want to, but I think it has to be a part of his personality, and that gentleness, which I think for men and masculinity, I absolutely think gentleness is a huge part of masculinity.
Huge.
And if you could even say one of the greatest, how would I say it, achievements of masculinity, because I think the first, teenage years, 20 years old times and beyond is a time of learning how to master the aggression that we have, and
self-control.
And I think gentleness is the evidence of some of that mastery, because we have to have that aggression in us, and but we also need to be gentle. So yeah.
I kind of want to go back to this question though, like full circle. So do you have it written down? I might.
The quote?
You don't stop playing because you get old.
Mm-hmm.
You get old because you stop playing. So we went around, and obviously there's a lot to take from our discussion that can help you guys. But what is that? I mean, how do we wrap that up? How does that happen? How do you avoid getting old by play? Because obviously you're like, I feel old, like my body is sore right now.
Yeah.
My body has like 5 different sore areas right now. That means I'm getting older because healing takes longer now. But how can because I also don't like feel old. You know what I mean?
Well, it's a weird paradox, because how many old people do you know that actually become playful? Again, or that maybe weren't, I
don't know. They're stuck, like you get stuck in your ways. It's really,
well, you do, but I also know some that are like, I guess I was hoping I'd go the other way, because I feel like there's many older men, like even World War II vets, that I can look back at in my family and beyond, that probably were more stoic throughout the years, trying to cope with everything they dealt with, but in their older years found a way to let go.
That's cool.
And they could live in that nothing really matters idea. Not that there aren't things that matter, but maybe they started finally focusing on relationships and how much they matter. And so, but I think if you take old as an expression or an attitude of someone that is not fun to be with, then I would, if we adopt it as that, which again, if somebody considers himself old, I'm not labeling you as that. I just think the way this quote runs for me is it's more of an attitude. is that my life's attitude is more old than it is spontaneous. And so
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, I like to think about it like viewing your dad as a dad versus when he became a grandpa. Have you ever heard that?
No.
Explain it.
So just seeing my dad, Fred, when he was when he became my dad or whatever, right? Like, and throughout our teenage years, and we had our fair share of arguments and whatnot. And I think when I saw him become a grandpa, whether it was to my kids or my older siblings' kids, like there's that soft side that I'm not going to say it wasn't there, but that I hadn't witnessed for a long time. And I think that's something that's always stood out to me when I've seen other men go through that phase of becoming a grandpa, like seeing my father-in-law be a grandpa to my kids too. It's like, it's incredible. The soft, the tender, the gentleness that can be seen, and the vulnerability also of picking up a baby and cooing and talking and, just baby talking to it. I think it's a level of vulnerability that, as a young 20-year-old, I didn't necessarily see from my dad, and rightfully so, because there wasn't a baby around,
Good point.
So I think it back to your point of men becoming playful in that age, I think it can. I think it's hard. But versus, right, I think that's what you're saying, Blake, versus always being playful and maintaining that level of playfulness throughout life. I think it is hard, but it's pretty beautiful when it happens.
I know for a fact the people I connect with the most are playful and use their sense of humor.
Definitely.
Like I can feel, because I can be vulnerable with them too, but also I can be fun and joke around and have a sense of humor without like them taking it too seriously. Like you can laugh when Shayden calls you a girl.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's awesome, because like because you know him well, that it didn't mean anything. It's just fun.
Yeah. I think we could do another podcast on, because I'm hearing like the women who listen to our podcast right now say, what should I do? Like, what can I do because I try to be playful with them, and I feel like I get shut down, and like, what can I do? And so I think we should do another one on that. But to that question, I would just say, don't stop, because you're a catalyst. And the more and more men need to have that influence, and even feel themselves reject it, because it is a form of accountability, because most men know. And if you don't, then you need to know it now, that little twinge when you reject their playfulness is just your insecurity. It's not how they're being playful. It's not, I guess there's some women that might overdo it, but it's more so on the man, that when you reject it and push it away, there's something that's coming up in you that you need to deal with. There's a reason that you keep shutting it down. Is it resentment? Is it, your own childhood? Is it whatever's going on, stress in your life? Either way, the most important person, your wife, her well-being needs to be taken into consideration. And women, they want to have that playfulness. They want to have that safe. It creates safety too. So, gosh, awesome. There's so much there.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Because even in my head just came like how the research on fathers playing with their sons.
Yep.
And like how important that is.
Yep.
So, but we do got to go. We both have appointments we need to jump into. So Thanks for listening, everyone. And again, if you ever have questions, or if you listen to the podcast and you think, gosh, I totally didn't understand that, or I totally wish you would have talked about this place, just tell us. We want content. That'd be great.
Yep.
We'd love to answer those questions for you.
Sweet.
So we'll see you in the next one.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.